Good afternoon, everybody. This is Gina. Welcome to another powerful episode of the Limitless Wombman podcast. I'm Gina, your natural holistic mystic, transformational coach, certified facilitator of women's circles, workshop leader, retreat creator. I think I've found all these tongue-tying ways to say things, and I don't know why. I'm also a speaker who's dedicated to all aspects of women's empowerment, often keynote speaking at different events. So today's podcast, as you know, is about letting your light shine, about the space for real conversations and raw truths and bold transformations, which I know I'm going to have with today's guest. It's going to be amazing. We're here to shift the narrative, break barriers, and bridge the gap between women and men, fostering deeper understanding and compassion and unity between us. So my guest today is Tom Scholtz. Tom Scholtz describes himself as just starting out as an entrepreneur in the field of communication. Personally, I would say he's an absolute excellent genius in this field in this expertise. Tom and I met on a group for single people looking for other unvaxxed single partners. And the group is a very interesting group. It's filled with very interesting characters, as you can imagine any FB Facebook group would be like. And there was some controversial post. And I placed the comment, which was, as usual, you know how I love to write my words, my passion. And I was trying to put a comment that I thought would be compassionate, but also address some of the negative comments I'd seen men putting in the group, and I just felt like as a community that's meant to be getting people together, it felt quite fractured, and I was a bit concerned. Anyway, I wrote this post, and Tom responded with a response that absolutely blew me away. I was totally taken aback by his level of understanding, his compassion, and how much I felt heard and seen within what he was saying. And I just thought it was such a rarity to have that kind of conversation with a man. And so we continued making comments and we carried on talking privately. This isn't about us getting romantic or anything. We've literally just bonded in soul, like a soul connection has occurred with me and Tom, where we communicate on certain levels, which I totally appreciate hearing from a man. So I've invited him onto the show so we could carry on talking, because we just, every time we talk, it's just crazy and I love it. So Tom, welcome. Thank you for coming on. I don't even know where to start. Why don't I let you go, introduce yourself, and whatever you feel like, let's go with it.
Okay,
Throwing the
yes, of
questions
course.
out.
Well, thank you for that introduction. So I'm Tom, I'm 25 years old, and I live in the Netherlands. I've lived here all my life. And I, about a year ago, started getting interested in communication between men and women. And I actually came across, yeah, I'll start this topic, yeah. I came across the man versus bear debate, the infamous man versus bear debate, which understandably a lot of people don't want to talk or hear about. But to me, it was interesting because it seemed to me like there were certain principles of communication between men and women that were presenting themselves in a very, very extreme form, in a very obvious form, such that if I could extract them, as principles, I might be able to apply them to, less extreme situations between men and women that, aren't as emotionally difficult to navigate. So then I basically noticed that, well, men and women, of course, have the same emotional needs, but they express them in different ways. And I I thought at that time that the discussion and even just the general dynamic between a lot of modern men and women nowadays needed compassion, but it didn't need compassion. It needed what you said, innerstanding. It needed an innerstanding of innocence. And that to me was kind of the undercurrent with which I built my first model. Back then, I did call it the cycle of compassion, with basically like, if you can imagine, like women being here. If you're watching, I'm putting, or if you're listening, I'm just putting my left hand up to the right side of my face, and my right hand to the left side of my face, or left, left, right, right, if that makes sense. Um, it's like women, more so than men, are very attuned to the not the non-verbal cues, to basically the tone and the way with which the words, the exact words, the tone with which things are said.
Mm.
And then, so that would be the first and ingredient of the cycle of compassion. And then the second would be more so the oh, could you cut this out? I'm having a blackout. I think I talked too long.
Don't worry, no, don't just keep talking because it rolls completely. Don't worry, it doesn't matter. It's raw, it's
Okay.
uncut, and you can just put a pin in it and leave that. Because what I will say to you with when you're talking about that is that what I've come to realize is we definitely do have different ways of communicating. We have different ways of communicating, and we are more, women can be more emotive and almost, we see our emotions very differently sometimes to even how men see them, you know? So even if we're expressing something that seems very important to us, because we can be emotional, because we got hormones, and I don't really want to, I want to talk about hormones, but I don't want it to be something that is used as a way to be dismissive either. Because women's hormones are continuously shifting all through the month. So sometimes we feel things more deeply, other things we can feel things more lightly. So there may be times where we take something a bit more personally than another time when we don't. But it doesn't mean that it's not personal still. Do you get what I mean? But it's so quickly to be dismissed through emotions and through hormones as if to say, oh, it's just that thing that's happening. Men have hormones too, but we don't seem to pay attention to the fact that we're all impacted by hormones. We don't have that empathy for everybody. Like if a man's really aggressive, we might not say that his testosterone levels might be out of balance. We might not even consider that maybe there's something going on for him hormonally that's making him more feel like that. Maybe there's something in his diet. We're just going to make it about that person, about them being something wrong with them, as opposed to it being a systemic thing. So when you're talking about how women would receive certain things, I can see conversations I've had with men where I've said something that was really important. They've not heard the words of what I've said, but they've reacted to the tone or been dismissive because of emotions, like rather than focusing on the words, the content of what is being said. And I think mastering being able to communicate with each other without your emotions and judgment, that is just one of the most challenging things to do. But you can't really do that unless you've done a bit of ego, you've worked on your ego a bit, I think. I think, you know, like you can't do that. You can't communicate with people on a level that you want to until you've learned to deal with your own ego, your shadow, your own. And these are all going to sound like fluff words, but until you've started to recognize those elements in you that are triggered and all this lot, you're going to keep on coming against that same friction with communication. I don't know. This is what I think I'm observing. I don't know what you think on that.
I was going to say that that I might comment on that using the cycle of compassion, or what I have now called the cycle of innocence.
Yes, please. I love that. And I read a bit about that from you.
So I will just call it the cycle of innocence from now on.
Mm.
I guess I had to introduce it as the cycle of compassion because people, even you, thought that us men and women needed a lot more compassion. Well,
Yes, yes.
I think in quite a lot of cases that's true. However, we as human beings are naturally compassionate. It's not that men and women aren't trying to be compassionate. So there's
Yeah.
something there. There's some missing ingredient, I think. And that missing ingredient is innocence. And then it basically comes down to how to recognize that innocence in both ourselves and, the other people, whether they're triggered or not, whether they're angry at you, whether they're hurting you or not. And that is indeed a difficult thing to do. That does require ego work and radical honesty. But the cycle of
Mm.
innocence is basically, um, I'll use the example of the man versus bear, which I was going to start out with anyway.
Yeah.
um, Now, in the man versus bear debate, a lot of men were understandably upset about being compared to bears, but a lot of women were then triggered that these men were upset because they felt unheard. They felt like, well, why are you taking away my voice? I'm just saying that I really feel, I would really feel that scared in an abandoned forest with a bear or with a man.
Mm.
That I
Mm.
would rather choose the bear than the man. And to the men, it's like more of a transactional thing.
Mm.
It's more like men approach it more from the level, which is not higher or lower, so to say, but it's just a level. It's just a perspective. Um, but men approach it more from the level of matter of fact statements. What is being stated matter of factly here about me? And so if if you are triggered by a matter of fact statement, that implies that you are more dangerous and horrible than a bear, then yes, that is very triggering to a lot of men.
Mm.
And men in their lives have been compared to many, many things by
Yeah.
women, by media, by all kinds of stuff. So I understand, even as a man, when I first um, saw women say that they would rather choose the bear, it was triggering to me. But and it's like I had to kind of be able to admit that to myself, to start to realize that, oh, hey, to me it's about what's being said here in a matter of fact way. It's not about what these women are feeling in the first place. It's it's about how I am reacting to it. And
Mm.
I kind of just stopped pointing my finger towards these women and pointed the finger inward. Because do you know this saying that when you're pointing one finger at someone else, there are always three fingers pointing back at you?
Yeah. 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 Oh,
And
yes.
so really it had much to do with my own um inability to understand the situation in um in such a way that I saw my own innocence, and that I saw the innocence of, a lot of the women who did choose the bear.
Mm. You see now what I think it is, right? There are not enough conversations like that happening with men or men and women, or like I could have, I can now, I must admit that until I had the conversation with you, I did see a comedy sketch where a man kind of gave the explanation to explain what women were thinking. But now talking to you, I really get a bit more the offense caused to men.
Right.
Do you get me?
Yeah,
I
I
get
do.
the offense caused to men, which I didn't have any compassion for or innocence for, as you would say. I was
Yeah.
immediately triggered by their own behavior. They were triggered by being compared with a very vicious animal, and I was triggered by them not hearing my perspective, not realizing how hurtful it was to be compared to an animal. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
And
And
I feel like as women, we kind of got to do some of this sometimes, We've got to do some of this sometimes. We've got to kind of go. And this is where I learned, this is where radical humility really, really, when I was looking up, what's this term, radical humility? What are they talking about? And I read up on it and I was like, God, that's such a powerful thing to own, to just be able to go, actually, yeah, that sounded really bad.
actually, I
That
might be wrong.
I might be wrong to have compared you with a vicious animal. Like what kind of what a more beautiful way to you could say that, and then you could say, in actual fact, it wasn't the actual animal I was comparing you with. It was the uncertainty, and then you can go on to have a much more loving conversation. But if you come at it with, oh, see, typical man, see, you're not even listening. This is the whole reason. This is why this statement is there, because of the exact same reason why you behave, everything you're doing. This is why we say we prefer bears. That tells the man nothing apart
You
from
know,
to just dig down more into making him feel like crap.
what's actually kind of shocking to think about is that in this man versus bear discussion, it did actually trigger so many existing stereotypes and strengthen them between men and women. Um, and even you, like, I consider you a very emotionally intelligent person, but
Mm,
even you admitted that at first before you heard my perspective on it, on
mm,
the debate. You couldn't see the compassion or the innocence of these men.
mm. I saw
And
their aggression. That was it.
sorry.
I just saw their aggression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really is just um both men and both women are simply almost at all times trying to communicate an emotional need.
Yes.
When men do that, they tend to use facts, they tend to use figures, they might use statistics, matter of fact situations that have happened in their life, because that to them is just what emotions are about. It's straightforward. It's kind of like building a conversation in the same way you could build a closet. Really, there's just this, and this and that. This is how you. This is where you put the nail. This is why I feel this. This is why that. And then we're not going to necessarily talk about how we feel.
No.
So it's really more to men. It's more about the 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 transaction that's happening, what's happening purely on the transactional level, which is why I think there are quite a lot of um, coaches and psychotherapists for men, that work for men, but they don't work for women. because they approach relationships on a very transactional level. And that has, that does have some benefit.
Yeah.
But I can understand that even that can make women kind of doubt whether or not men are really seeing them.
Mm.
Well, men, I think a lot of the times when men even read books like the 48 Laws of Power and stuff like that, they are learning about their own way of trying to deal with relationships. It's not necessarily toxic, but it can be,
Mm.
of course, and it does
Mm.
happen that it is toxic.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like say that they're all perfect, um, but so there's really this more transactional, this more matter of fact um, ingredient to the cycle of innocence that we have to be able to see in order to even like enter the cycle of innocence, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And it's not like, it's so funny because I'm a man, right? I'm a man talking to a woman on her podcast, telling women how they could communicate better. It's not like I want to like push this onto you or whatever. It's like I don't see myself. I see myself basically just as an equal to everybody and to every living being. That's really how I am. That might sound a bit off, a bit over top, um, but that's really just how I am, and
Mm.
that's why I wanted people to be able to see. I wanted men and women to be able to see each other's um, innocence, because it's. did you know? Did you know that there are relationships therapists, right? Um, Men and women who will represent their female and male clients, and even then, they'll argue about how to help them. And even then, there's this huge disparity between approaching it from the more transactional side of things versus approaching it from the purely emotionally acknowledging side of things, right?
Mm. Mm.
And just really understanding that and spotting it more and more in real life is, I think, is gonna help us see so much more of the compassion
Yeah.
that we as men and women already have for each other. It's not like because again, it's like I feel like so much focus nowadays is on nowadays is on trying to get us to become more compassionate, trying to reach for that space and that place in ourselves where we can shove that love onto the other person somehow, while also trying to balance all these factors about how they could interpret our
Mhm.
our words, our tone of voice and everything, when we really don't have to make that many concessions, you
Mm.
know and so my goal, I guess, um described in a funny phrase, would be um, to help men and women see the compassion that we have without any concessions.
Yeah. I like that. Gonna write that down.
Without any concessions, and
Yeah.
it takes some getting used to
Yeah.
be able to understand the other side's perspective.
Yeah.
It really does.
It really does. And I think that in order for it to, I was just, as you were talking, I was just thinking about all of what you were saying and how you can be, how you can get to that level of communication with somebody, and how we're always acting from a need, from an emotional need or something. But the thing is, I think ultimately people are looking for a partner, if they're looking for a partner who they can be open and honest about that journey with, and not feel threatened, uh, judged, and perhaps perhaps they feel weird for feeling how they feel, and just to be able to trust someone with their stuff and not be mocked. I think when people have been hurt over a period of time, and a lot of people that are in the singles market, whatever, they're getting old, where people are getting older and older, and it's getting harder and harder because ultimately I don't think online is the right
Uh-huh.
way for people to I think it does something to your mind, in the sense of it standardizes it, what's the word, when you kind of like, for example, swipe left, swipe right, swipe left, swipe right, swipe. It takes away that it becomes so automated. I just don't know how
Maybe.
people kind of get across that. I don't know. I don't know. You writing comments, because I've only just recently joined this dating pool thing. Thought I'd give it a go, and been advised by my children to do so. So here I am. But I find it all very interesting because it's new, but also very. I think I'm going to look for things where you can get active and meet people face to face, because I think
Yes.
communication. Because what we're trying to communicate, sorry, I lost track because I went off on a tangent there. But what we're trying to communicate is that we want to be compassionate and open. We want to be that person that can hear you and support you, but we want that back too. But we find it hard to do that when we have keyboard wars online. You just can't see someone in their full capacity, I think, online. I don't think you can. And I think you can lose quite a lot. I can't imagine what people would read of me
Yeah.
online. And I know I'm basically the same person, whether you meet me online or not, but you're going to get a different level of understanding of me if you met me face to face. That's it. You just wouldn't get none of this from seeing me online, typing or putting pictures up and trying to capture different parts of me. It's just not. But people have done it and they've succeeded, so we carry on.
Yeah,
And
I think
obviously we've met, so there is scope for it. I mean, I can't completely discredit it because I met you online. So
thank you. But I think you're making a very good point, and it's like, I think I think we have a natural sensitivity to red flags, both men and women.
mm-hmm.
And I think that sensitivity can be, kind of unconsciously elevated online.
Mm.
And the thing is, we don't notice it. There was this woman that had posted her introduction post
Mm-hmm.
in the Facebook group you were
Mm.
talking
Mm.
about. And she seemed like a very kind and quite intelligent woman to me.
Mm.
And there were like 3 or 4 or 5 men that had commented under her posts that, oh, she's fake, she's just fake, she's a scammer, she's not real. And so, that will be because these men have probably consumed some content that, this is what red flags are look out for in women.
Mm.
When women have a lot of followers, when they're very beautiful. And so
Mm.
it's like they have this sensitivity to the combination of these red flags. The
Mm.
more red flags they see, the less likely. But here is actually a very kind and
Mm.
amazing and interesting woman that
Mm.
I somehow got into a conversation with. Actually, I could even vouch for her that she is real.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
I did once. Um, and but these men here, it's like 50 of them. It's like, or by now it must be 80. I don't know. But there's 80 men that won't even see that.
Mm.
And it's like, well,
Okay.
what world are you living in? Are you aware how not cool your jets are? Is what
Mm.
what I wanted to say to
I
them.
like that. Are you aware how not cool your jets are?
And it's like even the same thing in the whole man versus bear debate.
Yeah.
Like there are in fact women who, you know, in whom the man versus bear debate and the whole way that men responded to it in general, there are these women that, you know, took that and kind of internalized that in a limiting way.
Yeah.
And that's totally understandable. But it's like, what emotion is there? It's like, again, like you mentioned, like
Mm,
the radical humility.
mm,
I think that's a very I think that's a very important ingredient, so to say, too. Just like
mm,
the ability to see one's own innocence and the innocence of the other sex that you're dealing with.
mm, mm, mm. I am on this eternal quest of just yesterday I put I saw something that really spoke to what I'm about to try and express, because sometimes I can't. My mind is just
Well,
my
let's hear
is
it. I
just
might be able to help even.
it said it was about basically continuously, oh, it doesn't matter, it's getting sidetracked, but it's like I'm on a quest to continuously confront myself and see what it is going on, do you know? So I'm always that's why when I came across radical humility, and first of all I was really on to, I heard the term radical responsibility and I was like, radical, like what does that mean? So I go look it up and I'm like, yeah, it's cool. It's
Radical.
yeah, I'm like, it's radical responsibility. It's just alchemy. It's taking full responsibility for your life and saying, look, I'm the creator. I can change whatever I want to change and I can make it into whatever I want to make it into. That's fine. Then I found radical humility and I was like, okay, let me see what this is about. And I went into looking what it was about, because I'm not really one for just throwing around these new phrases or I'm trying to embody it for myself. And so because of that quest, there will be times when I will say something, can read something, write something, think something, and I don't mind being challenged on it. I don't mind being challenged on it, because it is only, whatever we write and think and feel is only based on it's based on the limitations of my life experience. And I haven't experienced all of it. So I can be challenged on anything I say at any time, and I'm always willing to hear. So that's why I think the man versus bear conversation has been so interesting for me, because at first, as I said, you know, I did think the find the aggression of men's responses that triggered me quite heavily. But I guess as a woman, I have to put myself in the shoes of being called something by a man that I found really offensive. That's basically it. So basically, that would be the quickest way I could think of to try and get a woman to emphasize with what men were feeling. But then the comeback would be, yeah, but we didn't mean it like that. What we meant was blah, blah, blah. We should have had a discussion. But we didn't have a discussion. Instead, we got slated. Do you get what I mean? So that didn't leave space for that healing conversation. It's only when you come with set intentions with what you say and write, purposely set intentions. Every time I leave a very detailed comment in that group, there is an intention of compassion, love, and hoping for open dialogue set within how that is set out. Do you get what I mean? I'm not sending it out to offend or to trigger, but I am sending it out. If it does trigger you, I want to know why. Let's have a discussion, that kind of thing. But I'm not triggering you to just poke you. There's no point.
Just show other
Yeah.
people how triggered you are. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not trying to do that. I'm curious. like as you say, that's why I think what you said about innocence is so important, because what do children have? They have innocence and curiosity, you know? So when you say we need to develop more innocence, I was kind of like, you know what?
Well, really,
That
let me
makes
just stop
sense.
you right there. I'm sorry,
Mm.
but you used the wording. We need to develop more innocence. I'm not sure about whether or not we need to develop more innocence. I think we just need to
Yes.
see the innocence that's already there.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for catching that. Thank you for catching that.
Because
That's so
again, that kind of wording to me is reflective of the whole difficulty that us men and women have around navigating, the world of male to female communication, and
true.
this whole
Yeah.
discussion especially. Yeah, because
Yeah.
the innocence is already there. We just need to see it.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. I love
You're welcome.
that. It's true. It's all there. It's all already within us. That is the thing. It's all already within us. And I love what you just did, because I think I'm always talking about language being spells, spelling, spells. You got to be careful how you use your language. I do it myself all the time, like I've just done. But it's the language we are kind of almost, yeah, programmed, conditioned, whatever you want to say, to use can be very limiting and quite we're just used to saying things like, for example, someone says, how are you? You go, not bad. It's like, why not just say good? Do
Yeah.
you get what I mean? Like, that's just a basic thing. But I'm just saying how we use language, and how when we use language we cast that spell. So for me to say
Yeah, we're
you
basically
have to
used to.
develop. Yeah, sorry. For me to say develop in innocence is for me to then say that I don't have it and I have to go and get it somewhere, which I don't, because it's already here, which you so rightly pointed out. So thank you.
Yeah.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and yeah, but then again, it just seeing this innocence. Um, it's the key to expressing compassion without making a concession.
mm,
Yeah.
mm, mm,
And so, like, I think interactions between men and women could become so much more effortless and so much more relaxed.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be. It can be. And I feel like sometimes we've gone somehow regressed into like being kids, children again, in how we kind of communicate, because we've been hurt in our feelings, we've had situations happen, and so now we just start recoiling, and then now we don't trust. It's like the boys on this side, the girls on that side. Who's going to go and ask the girl to dance? I don't know if I'm going to ask her. I'm going to look stupid, and this, that, and the other. She should ask. Da, 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 da. We sound like I. When I look at it, if I sometimes look at how we communicate, sometimes I think we just sound like children.
Yeah, that's such a good point that you're bringing up, because I do think that a lot of people have um, well, let me approach it actually from the innocent side of it. I think that I think that as adult men and women, we have a kind of innocence, um, even just as adult men and women, not just from the childlike state of things, but
Mm,
as adults, as just the way that we naturally are,
mm,
and that we could go into sexuality and how it relates to that, and sensuality and all kinds of stuff. But
yeah, we're gonna.
there I
Yeah.
do feel like when men and women are going to be able to see each other's innocence more, um, they will they will become aware of their own inner child,
Mm,
and they will be able to see the inner child of that other person's, of that other person. But then what's very important too for both men and women, maybe more for women, I don't know. I'm guessing it is, but might be wrong. But what's very important for men and women is to at any given time that that they're interacting, is to be able to see both the innocent adult and both the innocent child in the other person.
Yeah.
And not just to because once you just kind of let that settle down in you as a realization, then you can kind of shift and work the conversation more easily, without really even having to consciously identify maybe whether or not that person is dealing with their inner child at all, or with their inner innocent adult at all, right?
Yeah,
Does
I
that
mean,
make sense?
that makes a lot of sense. There's a process I use. I use it with my clients. I was taught it by a previous mentor of mine, and it's all about innocence. And there is a process I use where you can actually heal old hurts, old wounds, things that have been weighing you down for decades, for years. And you can use this process, and it helps you to identify with the pain of it, from innocence. And it's really quite a innocence is kind of key to shifting so much in us all the time. If you can see someone's inner child, for example, sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't, because of the level of trauma that might be between it in that relationship, for example. But like, I can see the innocence in someone. I can see that wounded inner child. I can see that there is something there that's got them so badly that they are now in so much pain with it. That's why they're reacting. I can see all of that, and I can just send them gold loving energy and leave that and just be like, okay, cool, that's not me. I'm out of that. But at the same time, the only issue I have come across with having that level of empathy, compassion, innocence, however you want to express it, is that if I've been in a relationship with somebody who hasn't seen their own heart, can't see my own heart, and is more, I can see the pain, but they are just then it's become a bit of a dangerous space for me, because now I maybe should be walking away from a situation or something, but because of how I'm being so kind of compassionate and thinking, oh, well, it's this, it's that. Do you get what I mean? It's almost like you can excuse away behavior. So it's finding that fine line. I used to find a challenge to do, but what I then realized was I actually had to start finding that same level of compassion and love for myself. And when I started to find that for myself, instead of always looking at that for other people, I then started to develop these magical things, which I didn't know existed until then, called boundaries. And like just learning how to take care of myself, you know what I mean? And realizing that actually I'm not going to be putting myself in this unsafe space.
Yes.
Because now I've developed some boundaries which are now stopping me from falling into that danger. Do you get what I mean? But whereas there was time before I learned any of that for myself, I think it's about the innocent, everything that we're talking about that we need to or require or want to develop for someone else, we need to find in ourselves first. Because until we get it for ourselves, you can't see it for someone else, you know? Like you can't be compassionate for someone else if you can't see, like
But
I said,
even
yeah.
then, for girls and boys, but girls and boys are similarly but differently affected
Mm,
by the societally um, kind of programmed ways to
mm,
express emotion. For
mm,
example, like in primary schools, right? They always have the the kids sit down every week or every month or so in the circle, the sharing circle, and
okay.
then they'll they'll um, they'll ask them nicely, not aggressively but nicely, to explain what they've been through, maybe explain what they're feeling and stuff like that. Um, but I think there are positive sides to this sharing circle, and it
Mm,
goes into so much more. But let me stay focused. Um, I think there are positive sides to this, but then the negative sides to it is that even just sitting in a circle there socially in this classroom, even just the teacher asking you, hey, would you like to share something, is already a kind of pressure.
mm,
And so when you're sensitive, when you're empathetic, um, which girls more than boys fit those descriptions usually, then you might actually unconsciously adapt to start sharing emotions
mm,
that you don't even feel safe to share.
mm,
And so that even adds to the confusion between genders, right?
mm,
Because in this sharing circle, you'll have the girls sharing more often than not, they're sharing more than they really feel safe to.
mm,
Um, and the boys, well, they more often than not, they don't want to talk about anything. They just completely shut down
yeah.
because talking about emotions, again, in the way of explicitly stating what you're feeling without the transactional side of things, that's the more girl like way of
Mm,
talking about it. And so I think that even boys are encouraged to become more like girls in their way of trying to
yeah.
express. And so that kind of
Yeah.
confuses them so much and makes them think that the domain of emotional navigating, the domain of the emotional life, basically, is supposed to belong more to girls than to boys, implicitly.
Mm,
And there are
yeah.
so many things that strengthen this kind of thinking, so many sexist, so many stereotypes that are propagated, not just by the man versus bear discussion, but
Mm,
by media, by the way things are worded. I think yeah, there's so much this goes into.
so
We're
much.
just starting out on this conversation, I think.
So much. We're gonna have to come back to talk about this. We might have to make a series
Yeah.
because honestly, this is a topic that's so big for me at the moment, and I think for the world actually. Um, and I just really, it's just become something I've become very passionate about how we communicate. What is it that makes it? Because I know I'm quite good at communicating with men on a certain level and women on a certain level, but then there is some parts of it where you're more personally involved or whatever. Now, why is it that then those levels seem to go a bit shaky? It's like
Mhm.
keeping an eye on all of that, and I guess that's radical humility for you. Keep on remembering that I could be wrong. I think we should
Yeah.
all remember that. So, can I ask you, because we're going to have to wrap up, and I'm going to definitely have to call you back anyway. Um, what is a famous quote that you live by, that you love, that you might, for example, one of my favorite ones is by Carl Jung. You will continue if you continue to do the unconscious until the um, unconscious is made conscious or something. I can't remember that. And then you'll call it fate. It's my favorite quote, but I can't remember how to say it. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
It's a Carl Jung quote, but it's basically, yeah. But anyway, you go with yours. I've probably completely made you forget that.
I can't think of any quote besides one of my own.
Yeah, or yours. No, it doesn't have to be a Carl, someone famous. So a few people have given me their own, and I'd love to hear it.
It's if it looks like I'm reinventing the wheel, it's because it needed fixing.
Oh, I love that. I'm recreating the wheel. I love that.
Reinventing, yeah.
Yeah, I've put that in. It's because it needs fixing. I love that. Yeah, I love that. So you're going to, so anybody wants to follow you, they just have to follow you, Tom Scholtz, on LinkedIn and also on Facebook. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I will also be making a website
Mm.
called nowigetyou.com.
Oh, I'm looking forward to looking at that. You have to let me know. You'd have to come on when you've launched that, actually, so we can get there as well. Yeah. And anybody who's watched this episode and really enjoyed it, please don't forget to subscribe, to like, to follow, to share, and look out for another session with Tom Scholtz, because this conversation is far from over. Thank you so much for coming on, Tom. I've really enjoyed and continue to enjoy talking to you.